Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to be a Joy Monger? Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, go ahead and do that. Hit the alert button so you know when we go live every single dang time. There's the book right there. It's a wonderful book. And
Do you like those effects?
Yes.
Those were special effects.
Special.
Yep.
Very special.
Very special effects. We're high tech this morning.
So
We're
high-tech.
excited. We've got Sum Gigante groups running right now. The SG groups, Stretch Revolution. What else do we got? We got a lot of good things going on.
Oh,
We're still
you know,
working on getting the book made into a movie.
Yeah,
I'm
we're still
excited
doing
about
that.
Yeah, that's
We
still
have a-
happening.
This is all happening. We don't know how it's happening. We just keep stepping every day, step into the unknown
And we're doing it joyfully.
joyfully.
Yes.
Joy mongeringly.
Joy Mongering.
Yeah, that's the way
Yes.
to do it.
Do we
Yeah.
just make that a verb?
I think it
It's
is.
a verb.
Action
It is.
verb.
It's going in the dictionary and in the etymology online. So
Yes. Sweet. Well, now tell everybody about our guest because I'm excited for our guest.
yeah, I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to read your bio, Cordelia, because it's amazing and you've done a lot for the world. And so I feel it's best to just kind of read this through as much as I can. And if I miss something, just clear it up for me. Or if I misspeak, then help me with that too. But Cordelia is incredible. She's the world's best joy monger. So that means that she holds space for you to reveal your joy within. So joy mongering is a word she created after experiencing the brunt of people's fear as a Muslim woman. In fact, she has created a process she calls Replenish Me to help you transmute fear, rage, and anger into joy. In one of her 8 books, that's a lot of books. I know that's a ton of books, actually. Detached Love, Transforming Your Heart. To do that, I can't
So
even
that
read
you
that.
can transform your mind and learn how to read.
My brain just shut off. I'm like, yeah, it's really Detached Love, Transforming Your Heart so that you transform your mind, right?
Yes.
Is that okay? So she breaks down the Replenish Me process through her research, client stories, and her personal vulnerable shares. So she's also the host of 2 host podcasts. She won Best Podcast Host for her solo show called Free to Be Show and collaborates as a co-host on Unlearning Labels. The multidimensional genius she is, I like that, is further demonstrated as the mother of 6 children. Holy crap. Okay, like that would be, if you just put that in the bio.
It's just in the
you'd be
bio.
like,
yeah.
Okay, we get a
Credentials.
sense
And
of
there's
her.
more.
Okay.
And there's more.
You know what I should add? I homeschooled them for 17 years, but I had 4 of them at home. 4 home boards.
Holy cow.
That's
Yeah,
not in the bio.
No, 17 years of homeschooling that's a lot. So in summary, she's won multiple awards. Best podcast host of 2019, top national influencer, sexy, brilliant leader, and inducted into the Global Library of Female Authors in 2020. And in 2021, nominated for Author of the Year and Health and Wellness Coach of the Year. She's also won the Brainz Global 500 Award of Influencers and Entrepreneurs for 2021 and won Books for Peace 2022 award. So she's been featured on American Meditating Radio, British Muslim TV, spirituality podcasts, and also featured on South African radio and Fox News. Geez, we've got a great guest today.
I wasn't nervous until then. Now I'm like,
I know. Now I'm sweating. It's like
cotton mouth. Yeah.
Cordelia, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Nick and Ryan.
Yeah, we're gonna.
I would
It's
tell
a
you
joy
too.
to be here.
It's a
She
joy
is
to be here.
she
Yeah.
is as amazing in person as she is on
Yeah.
paper. This lady is incredible. We got the opportunity to meet her live at the Ultimate Experience down in Phoenix. Wow.
Yeah.
What an event. What
I
an
agree.
experience that was too. So thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
you're welcome.
as we dive into your journey, so we're going to go back in time a little bit, and I have people start wherever there was an awakening moment, or some people like to start with their childhood and development. So they'll go through kind of a history of that. It's really up to you, wherever you want to start, to give us a beginning point.
Yeah, I guess I'll start where I mentioned in my bio, right? About I chose to become Muslim 2 months before September 11th. Like I'm not clairvoyant, of course, right? I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
born.
yeah.
But
Well, dang.
hey, I'm gonna make a total lifestyle change, and then um, and
You're like, I'm not clairvoyant, but I have a friend named Claire.
I do, I do, um, and so at that time. I don't know if you've ever done something new in your life, like if you take on veganism or whatever, but you're like really like into it and you're
Yeah.
vibrating really high, right? So when September 11th happened, like on that day, because I live in Washington, D.C.,
Mm.
so, and the Pentagon was hit too. And so on that day, I was just at work and we were all like kumbaya and hugging each other. And the next day, I come to work and I worked on the ninth floor. And
Mm.
so I'm waiting to get in the elevator. And then all of a sudden, it's like this one lady goes, I want to get in the elevator with her. She's got that one of those blankets on her head.
Mm.
And I was like really shocked, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, whatever. And so I'm thinking everybody else is going to get in the elevator. And everybody else was like I had
Mm.
cooties, And so I was really shocked, genuinely shocked in that moment. And then on the ride up, I was just like, first of all, I'm grateful. No cooties for me. I get the elevator to myself because it got packed.
Uh,
But
yeah.
second of all, it was kind of like, how can people have so much fear? And just like I had been in that building at least a year, and they go from knowing me to equating me with something that nobody really knew what was going on yet. And I just thought, is there a way that I can, through just normal human compassion, help people to not fear so much, you
Yeah.
know? But it obviously, this is a culmination of over time and over years where that developed. Anyway, fast forward to about 2 or 3 years later when, it had to have been about 4 years later when I had 3 children and I had given up my corporate career. And, um, it's one thing to put up with that kind of thing when it's just you, but when people mess with your kids, like that's a whole different playing field,
Yeah.
battlefield. I'm gonna say battlefield.
Yeah.
Don't mess with my kids.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the grocery store, and I wouldn't have noticed it except for on this particular day. So my kids at that point, my oldest was 4, my daughter was 4, my son was had to been 2, and then I had my baby, my that I had just had, and so when I came in, there was a little girl. Same scenario. There's another mom, and beautiful little girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, and she's just doing what 3-year-olds do, right? And she knocked over a display and like the entire store stopped and, people that worked there, other people that were just customers were helping this mom. Because just like me, she had a baby in the baby carrier and you can't do much, right? And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. I'm so happy, peace and love and happiness. The world helps each other. Well, 3 aisles over, my son does the same thing, you know? And all of a sudden, same kind of scenario. People were like, oh my God, you see how they raise their children? I was like, what just happened? Right?
Mm.
No one lifted a finger. My 4-year-old daughter is feeling like really insecure and like, she wants to help her brother. And, of course, he's like looking at me. And I'm like, don't worry about that. Don't pick that up. there are people that work here that do that. And I looked at one of the employees that was there stocking and refused to do anything, right? And so I pushed my cart and I actually like touched somebody, not like forcefully, but I just smiled and waved. I was like, we are going to just go on home and, take care of what we have to take care of, because I had a choice in that moment. As angry as I was, right?
Mm.
And as confronting as it was, I had a baby on my chest, and we know how easy it is for babies to take on our emotions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, for the protection of my babies, and especially the littlest one, I'm not going to even entertain any of the nonsense. And my kids heard the stuff, so the ride home was character building for us all. And so
It's
it was
got to
just,
take a lot of like self control, because I've maybe like I don't know that I could have done that in that scenario, and
Yeah.
I'm not generally like faced with something like that, and I'm like feeling it for you right now, even though it happened all these years ago. I'm like, and the insensitivity, and trying, as in my position to put myself where you were, so that I can be more sensitive in those situations. Like this is good. This is good to learn from your experiences, and to just to be more sensitive and aware.
Can we hang on this for a minute and talk about this topic? I have a thought, and you can tell me if this is in alignment with it. But there's a lot of I would say what we call mental struggle, mental illness, depression, anxiety that comes from society, from our experiencing society. And if we didn't have that to compare to, all these people telling us what's right and what's wrong and who's good and who's bad and all this, so we have all these versions of it, all these in groups and out groups, that we might not be feeling a lot of the discord that we feel, the dissonance that we feel, because it's that comparison of ourselves with that ideal, which is always changing. The goalpost is always moving. Like one year it's this group, the next year it's this group. Now, like in this year, it's the Russians, right? It's everybody's loving Ukraine and hating the Russians. Next year it'll be something else. It just changes. And so that thought of comparing ourselves to society creates that discord within us. And then there's that also that rejection from society that also creates that within us, that frustration, that anger. And then you get to go home and try and soothe yourself, soothe your children after something that was really outside of you, an affect. What comes up as you hear that?
yeah, you're right. It's that piece of self-acceptance is definitely thrown off kilter every time you're the target group, and this is part of why I have that Unlearning Labels podcast, because I've so many labels that I could fall under, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a female, right? So I'm a woman. I'm a Muslim. I'm
Right.
Black. I have many children. I was a homeschooler. And so whenever um, we separate each other and decide that this group is less than, we're, I think, taking away from all of humanity. Because the truth of it is, whatever label you want to choose to use, there is something beneficial from each group of people.
Yeah.
You know, women are caregivers, so it can help people to understand how to give more freely, and children or little boys have so much energy, and they're so full of life, so that helps us to remember to stay playful and joyful, right?
Yeah.
And the Russians, they gave us like what is his name, Verzhnikov, right? Like, I think of ballet, so it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's like so many beautiful attributes from all different facets of humanity. Like, it's such a shame that we use that to separate each other. You know, in the Quran, it says that Allah created us all different so that we can, know the benefits and have more gratitude for Allah and for creation.
Yeah.
Right. So all these differences is supposed to be a beautiful thing. It's not
Yeah.
supposed to be a horrible thing, you know?
So there was a study called the Robbers Cave experiment, and then there was another one. I'll bring up both of these, of creating in groups and out groups. And so what they did is they took these boys and put them into a camp and divided them, one group, another group, and then they pegged them and started competing them against each other. So they became a bit tribal and started fighting against each other. And it got so violent that they were out there, like beating each other up, having fist fights, all this. They were friends going in. They became enemies by about midway through. So they were thinking about, how do we get them back together, because this is getting out of control. And so they cut off the water supply, which required everybody to come together and fix the water supply. It's called a superordinate goal. And it was bigger than both groups combined. So they had to come back together to work together. And that created the cohesion, the returning back to acceptance and friendship. In another study, there was a teacher that divided kids out by the color, I think, of their eyes or their hair, and made one group the enemy and the other group, blessed inside of the classroom. This is back in the 50s and 60s when they didn't regulate this stuff. But she created in groups and out groups inside of a classroom, and kids started bullying each other, being mean to each other based on the color of their hair or their eyes, whichever it was. And then she switched it. So the next day, those kids were the lesser group and did it back, and then taught the lesson inside of that of, look, we create this. How do we keep this from happening? It still happens. It still goes on. And, here's where I would wonder is, when that happens and that impacts you and you have that affect and it emotionally triggers you and your energy is going, how does a person take that energy and soothe from it and re-engage with life versus becoming what would be called the quote unquote victim of it and says, I can't do anything because, whereas somebody else might say, I can do something because. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand your question. If I go back to that particular moment,
Yeah.
I had a mission statement with my homeschooling. So I was like, the purpose is I want my kids to have human compassion.
Mm.
So this is the reason why what just happened at the grocery store is why I have to be better at showing my kids how to love each other and how to get along with each other.
Mm.
And it just, I can't say that I wasn't angry, but at the same time, it's really hard to be angry when you have a small baby on your chest, right? Who relies solely on you, and just caring for her well-being was where my real focus was, and in that moment I had it, and you can't shout, right? Because like her ear is right there. Right. So it's like, I hope she's okay. And I saw my older daughter really taking it all in and feeling like really affected by the whole thing. And I really had to be there for her and let her know that she's okay. There's nothing wrong with her. She doesn't have to do anything or prove anything to anyone. Yeah. And so I guess I'm talking a lot because I'm trying to find the answer to your question.
It's beautiful. Keep going. Yeah.
And for my son, it's just, I wanted him to feel okay in his skin. I didn't want him to grow up with that, that stigma that, I'm a black boy, or, my kids are actually mixed, but, so I'm a brown boy and people are going to treat me and look at me a certain way. And I just wanted all of them to feel like, there's a thing I used to tell them. I said, you're Muslim first. And no, it's you're human first, then you're Muslim, and then you're my child. you know. So as a human being, you know, we love everybody. As a Muslim, we have to share compassion, and as my child, there's certain things you just don't do.
Yeah.
So,
Like in Latin America, so you're going to get a huasca is what you're going to get a spanking, right? Like don't do that, right?
yeah, I didn't never spank my kids.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, and I guess for me, I just was really wanting to manage their self concept in the moment, and then I had to, but that required me working on my self awareness. It's like, how am I feeling? You know, what part of, you know what I mean? It's like,
I do, yeah. I see a pattern in it of awareness. Number one is you've got an awareness of what's going on. So you're aware of the situation, you're aware of your kids, you're aware of your own emotions, you're aware of the people around you. So that hyper awareness of what's going on. And then number two is choosing what to focus on, which goes back to your purpose, which is number three, is you had a purpose to realign you. So when it got into that awareness of this difficult situation and you start to focus, you lean on your purpose for that focus. What am I committed to? And so you removed yourself from the environment, the situation, which helps to soothe the body. And I mean, truthfully, the body is impacted when you get in a situation like that. You go into that reactionary state. Your body's firing, your nerves are firing, your chemicals are flowing, your adrenals are going, and your thoughts are spinning up of what's going on. And so to be able to have that awareness is huge. Like that's a huge thing. And to be able to realign with your purpose in that environment, this is a practice any one of us could grow from. And having a purpose is huge because it gives you something to anchor on, a focus point. And so you've given us a really powerful tools in a difficult situation to get back in alignment with your inner values and your inner purpose. Because what mattered to you, what was important to you, your value system is that I'm going to be an example to my kids around this. I'm going to lean on my beliefs. And I'm going to realign with my purpose. I value realigning with that purpose more than I value getting in a fight with somebody for not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, who are those people? I may never see them again.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Huh. Ryan, what does that bring up as you hear that?
I was thinking they would get a knuckle sandwich. That's what I was thinking.
See, that's the dad perspective.
Yeah, we'd be having a different conversation if this was Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is really good
Ryan
for me.
Got bailed out of jail, and then...
Yes, yeah. We would go down a whole different pathway.
Yeah.
But this is an amazing example of just what you talked about, Nick, because when you be a certain way, then when those emotions and those other things come in, you go into that default of how you be. It's a practice. It's a conscious effort. Otherwise, you just, who cares? You just go for the jugular in those scenarios.
Yeah, you do. You remember when you came to that first event that I did, the default mode network is what we talked about. Quieting the DMN is what it was, the demon, right? The default mode network, because 95 to 99% of what we do is at an unconscious level. The brain never shuts off. It's always going, but the cost of consciousness and awareness is so high. When you look at the brain, it's consuming 20% of the energy in the body. It's a lot. And so when it comes to consciousness, it's even more costly than that. And so it runs off automation and efficiency. So when you get into a situation like that, you become hyper aware and hyper conscious, and there's an exhaustion that comes from that afterward, because you are so conscious and you are having to pay attention and you are having to realign with things and really choose how you're going to show up. The brain wants to go into the automation. It wants to shut you down. It wants to dive right into, let's fight. Let's run away from this. Let's faint. But for you to step up and do what you talked about, to really be aware, that is a high cost, high energy activity that really impacted how that turned out.
Yeah.
Ryan, keep going if there was more around that, but
I'm just now like we've only made it into she was in the grocery store with kids in her journey.
yeah.
September 11th happened. That's all we got to. Like, I'm curious. Okay, from that point, like, then what? Like, there's a lot more to your journey. We don't have enough time to explore
No,
everything.
we don't. There's
We're
like
gonna
a
have
whole
to have
lot of
you
life
back.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going from there. So then, like, how does that impact your kids, your way of being? Where did you go from that point forward?
Yeah. From that point, like I was running different co-ops and stuff in our homeschooling community, and I often got the question about like basically what you guys just asked me. How can you just always be so joyful and your kids are happy and da 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 da? And I'd give them a couple of nuggets and they'd be like, "Oh my God, that's a lot. Write a book." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't have time to write a book." Fast forward to my fifth child, I had to recalibrate. I'm like, "Holy crap. I had like an organized system with four, but like five, I don't know if I can do this." So I was having imposter syndrome, when I was pregnant with my fifth child. And so I started writing a blog, and 5 years later, that blog became my first book.
yes,
And
beautiful.
that book I wrote, I guess it was like the year after I had my sixth child. So yeah, it's like the more children, the more time I had, right? Here's the
To
trick.
see people get things done, like you're a super mom. I mean, that's just the way it is. We have 5 kids, and so like it's busy. And there's
Yeah.
people that have one, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And I'm
How do
like,
you
"Yeah,
do it?
right. Come on, like,
Well, here's the
come on, I
thing.
can do that in my sleep."
But 5 kids, 6 kids, they entertain each other. When you have
Yeah.
one, you're it.
Yeah,
So I get it. That like when I had my first one, I was like, oh no, we got to have another one because I can't.
got to build in some
Not.
friends, some babysitters.
Yes. And see, it all worked out. So now those 3 babies are adults. 21 and 19 and 17, and but yeah, through writing my book, I was like, this is all the stuff that moms need to know. It was Guide How to Get Started with Workout Around My Day, which is a play on words, right? Because when you're a mom, you have to work in time for yourself, and that includes a workout around all the other stuff that you're working out during the day.
Yeah.
So, and my only focus, it was so humble. I was like, you know what? Okay, people have been asking me for years. I'll just do some workshops at the mosque. And then I just, I had relationships with about 5 or 6, maybe 7 different area mosques. So I just did workshops, sold my book. Can you imagine? I did a 3-hour workshop for the price of my book. Yeah, how about that? That's how I got started.
Yeah, but how about that? Because people get hung up on that. You were out serving. You were out there with a vision and a mission to serve, regardless. And I don't see anything wrong with that. Some people they might say, "Hey, you're just you're not valuing you and valuing your time." But I don't see it that way. I see that you're out there valuing other people
And being exactly who you be.
Yeah.
You're out there serving and loving and giving and sharing what you know, so that somebody else can take some of that and apply it in their lives. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So there's a quote Debbie Roth shared: "Joy lives concealed in grief," from Rumi. And you talk about joy and being a joy monger and grief. The idea of grief. We're going to be doing a webinar on this, but the idea of grief is this gravity, this heaviness, and it hits us and brings us back to reality as it is. But it's designed to really like clear and cleanse out what's not working, because it pulls you back into consciousness. Really, I mean, you're hyper aware when you get into grief. You see reality exactly as it is, and joy is found through that. And I think there's this sense that you have a situation like yours, events like yours, and you're seeing this system come together that grief really could have identified you. It could have said, this is who I am. I'm sad. I'm depressed because of all this stuff. But you took it and you turned it around and said, I'm going to use this stuff not only for myself, but for my family, for others in my community. And I'm going to look for the joy. Am I
Yeah,
accurate?
that's accurate.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And you're right. There was a grief, because I, even in choosing to homeschool, I grieved not losing my job, but choosing a different career over corporate America.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
that I loved my job, but it was like, like you go to school, get all these degrees, and then it's just like, I'm gonna stay home and be a mom.
Yeah.
And but I gave it my all, and I was really joyful in that. It gave me a lot of time to research.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was a lot of undercurrent going on too. Everyone in the home didn't agree to homeschooling all the time, you know, um, namely my life partner. And so when you speak about grief, what comes up for me is, you know, I had to make a decision at some point, and uh, I chose, right as the pandemic was coming in, right? We had something bigger. Everybody was focused on, oh my gosh, there's this horrible
Yeah.
virus, right? Well, that virus caused a lot of like whatever was unspoken for all those years of turmoil, surfaced. And so I had to make a decision, and I chose to end my 20-year marriage, and
Mm,
that that was something that, even though I chose it, I grieved that.
yeah.
And but even with that, the good news is, I was in the process of writing my seventh book, which is Detached Love, the one that you got tongue tied on. And
Yeah.
part of that
I'm
book,
having grief over that, getting tongue tied.
you
Yeah.
know, and in there, one of the things I talked about is having themed days and choosing your frequency. So if you're going to choose your frequency, do you have to let grief swallow you whole? Do you have to let a life choice um, just end you? And and here's the truth. A lot of people think that joy is an emotion, but it's a frequency, really. You
Mm,
know? So if it's my choice, why not have joy surrounding it, right? What will this mean now that, you know, this part of my life is ended? What are the possibilities that I can create in the new life that I'm moving towards? And so that's, you know, this is not the way people really approach divorce or post divorce. They're usually like, there's a lot of other things happening. But
yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, I just was like, this is an opportunity for the elevation of my soul. Let me work off of frequencies now.
So what is joy? If you were to define that, what is that?
It is it is really the understanding that not only are we love, but we're also peace. And holding space for that elevates you and allows you to be the closest human version of the sun that you can possibly be.
I love this. My mind is going like it's spinning, right? It's not that you are becoming those things. You already are those things. They get
Mm.
masked. It's love masked as anger. It's love masked as depression. It's love masked as anxiety. But when you clear anxiety, love is there. Peace is there. It's not like it's you got to go out and create this and find this thing and bring it into you. It's already in you, like the sun. It's like the clouds might cover the sun, but the sun didn't go away. It's just covered by the clouds. So as soon as they move, you see the sun come back through. Is that the
Yeah.
idea?
Wow, that's so, I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
For
it.
Perfect.
Yeah, Nick.
I'm going to trademark that.
You should. You're so smart.
That actually
Yeah.
was pretty neat. I'm like, that is a smart thing Nick's saying. He says a
Yeah.
lot of smart things, though.
We mask it, but I was reading about the way out of depression. I love science. The reason I love science is because it's an explanation of the mechanics behind the things that we do. It's not necessarily going in and saying that science is creating things. It's uncovering and explaining these things, and I really enjoy that for me. And so I look at things like grief and depression, and a lot of them, a lot of people in Western cultures experience depression, whereas you go into countries that are first world and they don't have the suicide rates, they don't have the depression that we have. And a lot of it has to do with our judgments of ourselves and our judgments of where we are compared to society and where we think we should be, and our ideals of what we think we should be and also what we think society thinks we should be. Lisa Feldman Barrett talks about it. But the way out that is being discovered is, which is interesting, it goes back to religious terms or spiritual terms of forgiveness and gratitude. Like the most powerful tools for turning around depression, creating peace in your life, getting back to peace in your life, shutting down LDL levels in the heart, like blood levels. It's like incredible. Like these terms that we've heard about for millennia that we think are, oh, that's a religious term. Science is now going in and saying, look, there's evidence for these things. When you can forgive, when you can have gratitude, your world changes. You start to eliminate depression. You start to eliminate anxiety. You just really get to peace, like what you're talking about. You're getting back to that peace. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Gratitude has been a big part of my journey. That was like one of the first things that I got into after I became Muslim, because there is a book called Purification of the Soul, right? And because I chose Islam as a spiritual practice, and this is something that a lot of people don't realize, it is a spiritual practice. It isn't really a religion. So,
and there's a lot of commitment inside of the spiritual practice of being a Muslim, right? I mean, there's a lot of commitment as far as that goes that I've seen, my experience of it. I mean, prayers and a way of being, and
like right now it's Ramadan,
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
So fasting for 30 days and stuff like that. But, gratitude, like I went into that whole process of gratitude of, oh, I'm grateful. I said, thank you. But like gratitude is understanding the opportunity that you're given for the few short decades that you occupy a body to really see and feel the world and know that it's not real. It's an illusion, and it can be and will be whatever you speak into creation, And then the other side of that, with the forgiveness, it's like when you misstep, or you believe the conditioning, what you were talking about, Nick, about all the things that society's telling you, or what you think that society is thinking about you. When you combine the gratitude with the forgiveness, and I'm saying starting with the self-forgiveness, and you just see yourself as, you know what, I can begin again. I did that. What was the lesson there? And if you don't know the lesson, okay, that's all right. I'm going to keep living, and eventually I'll understand the lesson,
So one of the studies that I read was about, for forgiveness, the term that they used for it so that people would have an understanding was to let go of the resentment around a perpetrator or an event or something that happened in this person's life. And resentment is to refeel the energy that was felt at the original point of the event, and to let go of that as a version of forgiveness. I have a version of it that says, don't cause additional harm, which is robbed from somebody else, because I love the definition of it. But the idea of forgiveness is simply letting go of refeeling that energy, letting go of what it means, letting go of wanting to hurt somebody because they hurt you, right?
And making it not mean something too, you know?
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
It's too heavy. Like
Yeah.
my body doesn't have the capacity for that, and my brain doesn't have the energy for that, you know? And um so I just let it go, because what's the point in holding on to that, you
It's
know?
heavy. Yeah.
It's too heavy.
What's interesting to me is grief, gravity, gratitude all come from the root word gruere, which means heavy. And if we think about it, the letting go found in gratitude is just letting it be what it is, and really loving it for what it is kind of that release. Even though it's a heaviness, it comes from that heaviness root, it's still a release. And so, like you said, why am I carrying this around? And
Yeah.
it's all in here, you know, like somebody might do something out here, like that grocery store. Some event might happen. What people have a tendency to do is say that means something, letting go of the meaning, right? That means something. That was hurtful. That really hurt me. So they make it mean that. And then they attach an emotion to that meaning, and it becomes now a value system and a belief system, which affects their perception of the world and what they speak into the world. And what's crazy about it is that single event that was meaningful in their world now impacts everything that they do. Now, everything that they speak and act on creates confirmation of that in the world. Whereas, what if that wasn't true? What if it didn't really mean what you made it mean?
See, for me, what that meant was I needed to work harder at changing the collective consciousness. And I had to start doing that with the way I raise my children. I had to raise them to be compassionate, and then they would affect their friend group, and their friend group would affect their family group. And you know, like that's
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
made it mean.
Huh.
I love that you took an event and then just totally transform that into
Huh.
something else, something positive. Just that's incredible. I also, as you guys were talking, you had mentioned about things that happen to you in events, and you don't know what they mean at the time or the lesson that you're supposed to learn. And I had a friend that about a year ago, gave me a bracelet. Well, it hasn't been quite a year, but gave me a bracelet. It's an Anna and Anna bracelet from or whatever it is from Frozen. Anna and Elsa bracelet. That's what
Oh,
it is.
okay.
And it's really like a beaded bracelet. It just says "Let it go."
Oh,
And so
nice.
it's in Frozen colors. Like it is not a dude style bracelet.
Can you hear
I
all the
wear it.
judgment going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. There's
I
tons
know.
of
It's like,
yeah.
why isn't it a dude style?
In
I mean,
culture, in like where like where we are in culture and stuff like that, people would be like, "Why is that dude wearing a Frozen bracelet?"
maybe your daughter gave it to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of people say that. They'll be like, "Did your daughter make it?" It's like, no, a full grown man gave me this bracelet.
Really, dude.
Yeah,
He hand wove this.
we exchanged bracelet. I gave him something of value from that I had because we both wore bracelets. I don't have any on at the moment, but gave him my giant bracelet. He gave me that one that he had made for himself to remind himself to let things go. And as you're talking, I'm starting to think about the meanings that I attach to things, and they're just made up meanings, and I can take them and then I can transmute them into something completely different, make it be whatever I want it to be. And that's power. That's powerful.
I go science nerdy on this. Like when you say, "Oh, transmute," I'm like, "Oh, laws of thermodynamics." Sweet.
See?
Like the idea there though is that the energy is the energy. The event is the event. It's a neutral thing. And energy is neither created nor destroyed according to research or science, right?
Yeah.
And but it's transformed from one form to another. And an event happens and it's not created or destroyed. It's the event. It is what it is. But then it comes into our space and we're the transformers of that energy into one form or another. We either make it mean this over here or that over there. And then based on that, we create that as our objective reality. So it's not like the event was any different. The event happened. The event is what it is. But our meaning making is what determined the outcome of that event. And you've given us a demonstration of really turning that around.
Yeah. I mean, for me, all roads always go towards the changing of the collective consciousness.
Mm,
I feel like that's something that's never changed for me. And I don't even know where that term came from, but it's like I always go back to that because I believe that if more than one person believes something together and we speak that into existence, that can change the world. You
yeah.
I
know,
think about the like this. There's the story about, I think it's sea turtles, and they're getting picked off by seagulls and different, birds of prey and stuff like
baby
that. They're just
seal.
all hatching. Yeah, and some guy goes and picks them up, starts throwing them into the ocean, and you're like, "What? You're not even going to make a dent. You're not going to make a difference." Like, well, you're making a difference to the one I just threw into the ocean. And as you do that, more and more of us do that,
Yeah.
makes an impact, makes a difference.
R-
Because you could easily get caught in, well, what does it matter if I do
Yeah.
that? I'm just one person. Doesn't
right.
matter. But I really like what you said about the collective consciousness, because that's what we're trying to do as well, is to help people believe that they're giant already.
Well, the other thing too is not to fight what is, because that fighting of what is and that resistance of what is only gives attention and energy to what is, which actually causes it to grow.
Yeah.
It does the opposite of what you think it would do. The collective consciousness, Rupert Sheldrake, and his research is beautiful because he
Oh
talks
yeah,
about
Rupert. I remember
Rupert
that.
Sheldrake, yeah, morphogenetic fields and collective consciousness is what he talks about. That there is a consciousness that's above all of us. That as we feed into that, it grows. So wherever we're giving our attention is going to grow. So if you're feeding collective consciousness, that will outgrow anything negative in this world. Rather than most people, what we tend to do is fight what is, which causes the thing that is to grow even more. It's like,
And not to say that I haven't experienced that too, because there
yeah,
have been times that I have gone into that, but that's why I know it doesn't work. And
yeah,
and as you were talking about Rupert, it was actually Bob Marley where I got it from.
yes.
That's where I would have heard it. Like I wasn't thinking, oh, old Rupert. I was thinking that's a Bob Marley thing.
Gosh dang it. I gotta listen to more music and,
Yeah.
and start reading things outside of science books.
I
Like,
do both.
yeah, Nacho Libre. I only believe in science. You have not been baptized. That's beautiful. As we continue here, we got a few more minutes here. So you've got 8 books that you've created in your journey so far. And I'd
Yes.
venture to say there's more to come from you. You have your program. Is it called Replenish Me?
Yes.
Yep. And can you tell us a little bit about that? What is that?
Yeah, Replenish Me is just basically what we've been talking about this entire time. It's
Huh.
it's a process of letting go,
Yeah.
and just choosing to restructure it, and every iteration of what's happening in your life, um, based on your values, and then just refreshing your vision, which can sometimes, you're going to attract new energies, new people into your life, and the other people will fall away, and then it allows you to rebirth and be who you are in that
Mm.
iteration. And it's an ongoing process, so it's really a process. It's not what I would call my actual program. It's a process of being.
Yeah, I like that.
So Replenish Me was really born out of, having 6 kids. I know it looks like I've got lots of energy, but believe it or not, sometimes I get a little bit depleted. So I was like, how can I sustainably pour into myself on a regular basis, And that self nurturing is mostly on a spiritual level, and then on a cellular level, because we live in a body,
Yeah.
and yeah, and
I,
then of course the allowing, like I lost train of thought for a minute.
you're good. You're good. Keep going.
And also it was, being aware of your friend circle. Who are the people that what are the energies that you keep around you, because that's going to fully pour into you or suck you dry.
Yeah, that so we hear that often, right? People you associate with, your friends, your circle, your community, that's going to impact who you are. What I would think around that is their perception of the world is going to be spoken, and words are powerful because those words will impact your perception of the world. So if they're speaking something that is contrary or contrasting to what you perceive the world as, your point of view, it's going to have an impact. And so just really being conscious of what you're bringing in. If it's always negative and the world is this and it can't be this and blah, 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 that phrase particularly, if they say blah, blah, blah,
Blah, blah,
then
blah.
you
That's
know,
it.
yeah,
But
that's
Yeah, change friends
sometimes they're
instantly.
also
right.
just they're reinforcing conditioning too. That's the
Yeah.
blah blah blah, right? There's a song actually that I used to listen to. So you need to listen to more music. But
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I was in high school and I was in France. So there's a song called Trop de blah blah. Trop means like too much, right? And it's just like how people they waste their words, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That was
they
impactful, Nick. That was amazing that you knew that French song.
I see somehow when I go unconscious in my rants, somehow it always comes back to serving the community.
That
Like,
blah, blah, blah song.
hold on, I'm going to check out so I can tune in and say something
That was
blah, blah, blah.
impactful.
See, you're so clever.
Yeah, clever. It's that would be the word. I have a brother named Cleve. He's clever. He's Cleaver. Yeah, this is really interesting. So in our journey, so we have the 12 journeys. We have 6 root journeys, that talk about the foundation, because who you're being is part of that root journey. And that's all about who you're being. Then we have 5 growth journeys and 1 journey of giving back, like the fruit of a tree, right? So you have your branching and your fruit of the tree. And in all of it, hopefully I can tie this into where we were going there. I've got to pull it back like I had a brain fart.
See, it seems to be going around today.
Yeah. But in the journeys, it's who you're being will create your doing. And it comes back to your words, what you're speaking into the world. That's where I want to tie in, is what's going on inside of here becomes the foundation of your perception and your prediction. And we're predicting, we're constantly predicting what's going to happen in our world based on our perceptions and our experiences. Prediction, if you break up that word, means before words, predicting it. And then when you predict it, then you speak it. And as soon as you speak it into the world, there's magic in those words. As soon as you speak it into the world, now it becomes a creation. But there's a chance before that, before whatever you're going to say, blah, 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 right? To shut that off. And so that prediction is our chance to play it out in our mind before we speak it to the world, because as soon as we speak it to the world, now we're acting on it and creating it as an objective reality out here. And so that prediction and that perception is affected by the people you're around, by the environment you're in. It's affected by what you're reading and putting in. And does that bring something up?
Yeah, I have an example of that. So like in the prediction phase, this is where vibration matters, because you can think a thought and depending on who's next to you, that thought can manifest without any words happening. Okay. For example, recently I was in a car with one of my sons. He's a teenager. And I had passed a police officer and I was like in a turning lane, but I was going straight. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to be pulled over, right? My son was thinking, oh no, what if he looks over and sees that my mom's Muslim and he pulls us over? And I don't know that he's thinking that, right? But his fear was greater than my thought where I'm just pushing it out. I got pulled over, right?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. So then the police officer, he was like telling me why he pulled me over and everything and asking for my stuff, right? I didn't have, I didn't know where my car registration or my insurance was. So it was like, but within myself, I was like, it's all going to be cool. He's not going to care about it. Anyway, long story short, I get my insurance company to, send me my insurance papers, and we found my registration. And when he went to check my driving record, of course, I don't usually get pulled over. Um, he left the papers in his car, because I'm still focusing on everything's going to be okay.
Mm.
This is just an opportunity to let my son see that it doesn't have to be anything, right?
Yeah.
Me always
Yeah.
worried about how my children are taking the world in. So the police officer comes back. He's like, "Oh, you know what? I forgot. I'll go back to my car. I thought I had it with me." Then he comes back and he's like, "Look, I'm gonna just give you a warning, and but just be careful. Don't go straight in a turning lane, because it's raining today." And then he's like smiling, and he made some really, really bad dad joke.
We're good at that.
Hey.
We should probably have him on the show.
You should. You should.
Yeah.
It was, and
Yeah,
then
we do
I was
that a lot.
like,
I can relate. Yeah.
yeah. And then we
Yeah.
were just laughing. We were
Yeah.
just laughing, you see. And so when I didn't know until after, of course, that my son was the one that got us pulled over.
Yeah.
So it was just his thought, but
Which
my
is-
thought overshadowed it.
Yeah, that's power, because even though the fear comes in and it might create, you can still reconnect with the purpose and where you're going and realign with that, and it will override again anything that was created from the fear. So there's still some cleaning up that gets created out of that whole who you're being, right?
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. Like, this went by so fast, and I want it to continue. I want to talk more, but we'll run out of time. But I want to ask, if there was one piece of wisdom that you would share with yourself, let's go back in time. If there was one piece of wisdom that you could carry through your entire experience, and I know there's more, but just choose one, any one will do. What would you share with yourself that you would carry?
Yeah, your thoughts can be seeds to your growth or bars to your prison.
Oh, yeah. Dang. Can you expound a little bit on that?
Well, just like we've talked about all through the conversation, my thoughts, I can allow it to grow and blossom and create something beautiful, or I can take what I think about a certain situation and imprison me, and really get me trapped in resentment, like we were talking about, or trapped in depression. And but there's so much life when I use the thoughts to create something more beautiful. And one of the things that I talk about in my Replenish Me process is sweet talk creation. There's actually a flow chart for that, by the way.
Yeah,
So-
nice. Now you're talking my language, flow charts.
Yeah.
Super exciting. Yeah.
So in this case, that's what sweet talk is. It's like examining the thought that comes through. It's like, what's the sponsoring thought? And, am I thinking crazy, evil thoughts because it's a self-care issue? Right? Did I not sleep enough? Did I eat the wrong food? Am I thirsty? Did I not exercise? But if it's not a self-care issue, then what's the triggering situation? What's making this come up for me?
Oh, man, I want to do a show on this, and I want to have you come back and go through this with you. That sounds phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah. So that is like the middle piece of the Replenish Me process, but we'll talk about it next time.
Let's do it. I want to have you back on. Are you open to doing that?
I am,
yeah.
Absolutely.
We corner you right here live.
No, I'm going to say no.
Yeah. No, I don't want to do that. Ryan, do you have some additional thoughts?
And that would be okay too. But it's all good. We're glad that we're grateful for who you be. Like I said, we got to experience that live. I could feel the energy. I got to take a picture with you and meet you in person. Steve Hardison highlighted you in the event, and there's a reason for that. And it's because how you're showing up in the world and what you're doing to help other people, and it changed my life. And this has been eye-opening for me as well, to be able to see from different perspectives and to learn from your experiences. And so I'm very grateful, because it's changing how I be, and how I show up. And so thank you for your wisdom and for the things that you've shared with us today. It's made a difference.
Yeah.
And now you're free to go enjoy Monger.
That's right.
I picture, Dr. Seuss, he's like, there's nobody youer than you, that the places will go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you
And
don't know that about me. I'm a Dr. Seuss fan.
oh yeah, awesome. I have some poems I'll need to share with you.
Yeah, I
we
read
we
Dr.
tell
Seuss.
we tell Nick all the time, it's like Eminem and Dr. Seuss had a baby, and it's Nick.
I could see that. Yeah.
And Rupert Sheldrake.
Yeah, and Rupert, old Rupert.
I don't know how that works, but in a
Yeah.
in a petri dish, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a petri dish of poetry. That's a weird blend right there. Yeah.
It is.
I don't know if you were,
Perfect.
like, when I was a kid, I used to go up to the soda machines and put every flavor in, right?
You're that kid. Okay.
That's my
That
poetry.
explains Nick,
Yeah.
huh?
There you go. Man,
Well, that's what happened.
Oh, that's it. How to mess up your brain in 3, 2, 1. I love it. Thanks for being on. For those that are watching, just remember, you're doing exactly what you should be doing. Just keep stepping and really trust you and your inner guide and your intuition inside of all of this, because when you can realign with your purpose and really step into that, that's where you'll see impact in the world. And people are watching. People around you are noticing. So, I mean, if that situation at the grocery store had gone different, people would have noticed. But you were like calm and collective. People noticed that too, whether they were conscious of it or not. They were aware of it. So this is where I would invite those that are watching, is just keep stepping. Remember, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're going through what you need to be going through for your journey. And it's different for every person. It's like a fingerprint. So trust it. Keep stepping, keep growing, plant the seeds, like you said, for your growth, not the bars for your prison.
Yeah.
That's powerful. So we love you. Go make it a giant day, and we will see you in the next episode.
Love you too.